Hello, everyone. This is Heather Thornton with Therap Services. I'm a billing specialist with Therap. So today we're going over tracking our transportation, both how you can use ISP programs to document different pieces of that transportation tracking, such as location, if your state so has that applicable requirement. There are only a handful of states that actually still have some of those different requirements that require further documentation of mileage services. So just mileage and transportation services. So that being said, I want to go ahead and go over a couple of those with you. Now, just to iterate, unless your actual transportation is one daily unit, not a trip or not mileage, but an actual daily unit or a monthly unit like a bus pass, can you actually bill from the actual ISP data? Okay, those are really the only two extenuating circumstances. Otherwise, you would need to make sure that you are putting in your billing information in either the attendance section or in the billing data input section, which I will actually show you both. So Devin, if you don't mind sending the screen over to me, I'll go ahead and get started. That'd be great. And just to let you know as well, this is being recorded and will be posted on the Therap site as well. All right, so just to give you a little example, I'm not going to go too much into the actual documentation requirements because it does differ for each state. I just want to give you an example of what that looks like, and it's going to be just a very generalized transportation ISP program to utilize. So right off the bat, I hope everybody can see my screen okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and come over here and show you the actual ISP program first, and then I'm going to show you where they would actually go in and document on it. Staff would go to document. So I'm going to go ahead and show you my ISP program. And by the way, as well, I know there are some states that have a documentation requirement for transportation that is quite extensive. I know Missouri is one of those. Please make sure to check out the Global Template Library here, because there are providers that have published the template in there for some of those states. So make sure to check those out, because you don't have to start these from scratch, because most of these have been published in the Global Template Library for those ones that have heavier states specifications and requirements. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that ISP program. Sorry for my diversion there. All right. So just to give you an idea right in here, and this is very straightforward, not a whole lot of bells and whistles, but they just needed that little bit of additional information. And here, so very straightforward: creation date, label, program, what they're actually answering for those requirements. You know, the actual question for the staff is to enter the miles driven, include comments, where it went. So they want more information in regards to the transportation that was provided for that individual for that date of service. And that's pretty much along the same theme. For states that can provide, or that provide a bus pass, so you have that monthly rate or along those lines that you can bill for once a month. So you can indicate that information here and bill off of that piece of documentation as well. So it just really depends on your needs. But again, to bill directly off of the actual piece of documentation, it would either need to be a daily unit transportation, or it would need to be a monthly fee that you can charge for that individual for their transportation services. Otherwise, the ISP program, the ISP data is going to be primarily for your review and your audit purposes. So make sure that you are familiar with your state rules and regulations in regards to documenting your transportation services. So before I jump over to the actual billing piece of the transportation tracking, are there any questions in regards to the ISP program? I do want to show you where staff would go in and document for the documentation piece anyway, but this will at least give you a minute to ask any questions you may have over that piece. So right here, and like I said, very straightforward. I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge this. Okay, we're going to just leave it as today's date. So begin time and end time are not required on this one. They're going to enter in the applicable miles that they drove, and then they can make their comment of where they went, and that further information that's described in the descriptions. So that would be your staff's documentation piece in the transportation, kind of according, again, to your state specifications. And I know this is an incredibly simplified one, but again, there's only a handful of states that require a more in-depth documentation of your transportation services. All right, if there aren't any questions in regards to the documentation piece, we're going to go ahead and go over to the actual billing side, because again, like I said, and unless it's one of those previous mentioned circumstances, the majority of your actual billable documentation, meaning that where you're actually going to track the transportation that was provided, is going to be done over on the billing side itself. Now, there are a couple of different ways to go about it, and there are a few different methods just based on your actual mileage that you're providing, whether that be mileage transportation, meaning that you're recording the number of miles per day that you're providing that transportation for the individual. That could be trip transportation, meaning that you have your one way is a fee, and a way, or the round trip is, it would be 2 units. So that would be one way round trip to document trip transportation. Your other ones could be, like I said, mentioned previously, like your bus pass, if that's applicable to the state you're in. You could do that monthly fee with that, or again, if you have a straight daily unit fee as well, that could also be another way, but those are really going to be kind of the main ones that are going to cover the majority of the services in different various states. But just to give you a little bit of an idea here, excuse me, I'm going to go ahead and show you just like that service authorization and your choices there, and give you a little brief description of how those actually apply. So in your service authorizations, and I'm going to a specific one, so bear with me on doing my little cheats here. So I like to search by service code. Okay, I'm going to bring up my service authorization. So right here, if those of you that are familiar with them, you're already fairly aware, this is representing the authorization that you get to provide services. So that is this is a representation of that information within Therap. Authorization period. Okay, so right down here, I actually have my transportation assigned to this individual. Now, this piece of it, the actual code itself, is set up on your admin side in your billing section. This is a trip transportation, what I was indicating previously as one of those methods. Your total billable units is the total number of one-way trips they have per year. Okay, you have, of course, your unit rate that carries over from your admin side, from your service description code, your total amount that is just represented by a calculator, by the way, and any applicable modifiers. I'm going to go ahead and put in, not that, but I have to fix that, sorry. That was an ICD-9 code in that ICD-10 section. Okay. So write down here any applicable prior authorization number you'd apply in here. But this is actually built for attendance because staff are going to be able to indicate one way or round trip, and that's all they have to indicate. And according to that designation, if they select one way, it'll generate one billable unit. If they select round trip, it'll generate 2 billable units. If you have more than that, you can label it accordingly. So you can say one way, 2, 3, 4, accordingly. If you have more than that round trip provided per day, and you're authorized to provide more than that round trip per day. But this one is designated. It's not required time in, time out, because it's not designated by time in, time out, because again, it is trip transportation. Okay. So right there, the attendance is one option for any of these transportation pieces that you want to utilize. The other option would be your billing data input. The big difference in our system, billing data input is a manual entry, and it is one person at a time per service code. The biggest difference is with the attendance, you get to do date range, and you get to document on you actually get to document on groupings of individuals. So when we're setting up transportation, we tend to recommend utilizing the attendance just for efficiency's sake, but that billing data input is definitely another option for you. It's just more of a couple of more manual steps for you. Now, I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I want to bring up one other for you just to show you a little bit of the difference there. Okay, now here I have, I'm going to go ahead and use my nice little cheat again. Not a cheat, just another filter you can utilize. Okay, so right in here, I have, this would be considered a monthly rate, or possibly that bus pass transportation, or you're allowed to bill this monthly rate once a month for that individual's transportation services. So I'm going to come right in here. So you see that month label, your unit rate. Okay, just going to pick that up. All right, and right down here, again, that same information would apply. But in the attendance, what we have an option of is in the attendance, you can actually utilize a direct billing option. And what that means is that, for instance, for your mileage transportation, that's where you're going to be able just to put in those miles for that individual for that date of service. If it's a bus pass, you're able to put in either the dollar amount, or in this case, the way I have this one set up is that if I do 1 unit in there, I can list it as, that will calculate out to my $26. Okay, so there are a couple different ways, and it's really just based on your state and some of those state rules and regulations, but those are the 2 main ones, and the different variations that you would be utilizing in the attendance in the setup. But again, I am going to show you both, but I just wanted to give you an idea, kind of a little bit of the differences there between the two. Mainly it's the service code and how it's calculated. All right. And again, if you have any questions as I'm going through this process as well, please feel free to ask them, and we will definitely make sure that they are addressed. But that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move on. And in the attendance, okay, we have a 1-day entry and we have a date range entry. These two work the same way based on your super rules in the system. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do new for right now, just to kind of give you an idea of what that entry looks like. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and push it back to the first because, you know, why not? And attendance type. And for right now, I'm going to go ahead and just show you just that trip transportation. Okay. Now, right here, if you're in a state that has multiple mileage bands or zones, you're going to select one initially. Okay. And I'm going to show you why. I'm going to go ahead and come down here and do my search. Okay. Because once I come over here to my other page, I'm going to be able to do a show all. And then that's going to show me everybody that has those transportation services assigned to them. So just initially, I have to select one service code to get in here. But then I can definitely do my show all. So then it's going to show me everybody that I have access to since the attendance is caseload based. So right up here, I have my options of my one-way or my round trip. Okay, this is set up on your admin side via your attendance type. And just to give you a little peek of what that looks like. Okay. Very straightforward, not a whole lot of bells and whistles there. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say round trip. Go ahead and I know I have to have the same person in there. It'll be okay. Come down here and do my submit new, and that's your staff's entry. So that's one of the benefits of the attendance is that you're able to select more than one person at a time, more than one service data at a time to do that piece of documentation. Now, if I come back and I'm going to show you what that mileage transportation looks like, and I'm going to go ahead and select my mileage one. And these will be two different attendance types because it's calculated in two different ways. So right here, I'm just going to go ahead and designate that. Okay. So right in here, this is the biggest difference when you're doing your mileage or even that monthly rate difference or the monthly base rate there. And just to show you the difference on that attendance type, you will be utilizing an advanced option underneath the attendance where it says use direct billing units. And in fancy words, that means, hey, this is how many miles I'm going to put in. Okay, or if it's that one bus pass, I can put a 1 in here. It's really according to what you have assigned to that individual. And of course, again, your state specifications. So if I needed to put in my dollar amount each time, I could put in my dollar amount. And then my service code would be set up for $1. Right, and then I have 26 units, would equal out $26. But for this one, I'm going to go ahead and do my attendance option. So regardless of the direct billing unit, regardless of the transportation, you always have to indicate an attendance option. So right in here, I'm going to just say, I'm just going to go ahead and put in 12. And that would, when I apply that, that would give me my 12 miles for that individual for the day. Okay, and just to give you an idea what that looks like, I can also input in the mileage, the miles right in here as well per that individual. If I want to apply it to more than one person, I would want to utilize this up here. But if I want to go through and individualize it per person, I can definitely use this nice little number box right down here, and that'll override whatever's designated there. But I'm going to come on down and I'm going to do my submit new. Okay, so that is your staff recording that mileage. Okay, if you are doing that bus pass and it's just that 1 unit and that's going to equal out that $26 fee, you can have an attendance option that just says service provided, and then it'll calculate that 1 unit. So you have a couple of different ways in order to calculate that information out of the system. And again, the attendance, you would go ahead and go to your approve, review and approve that information. So we'll go ahead and just hit approve there. And then I would be able to come over here to my generate billing data, do my select all. And for the most part, I would be doing this under my attendance and search to where I'm looking at a date range and probably not one at a time. Okay. And generate billing data. Ooh. So I have a restriction in place because this is a monthly unit. I was able to say I only want to generate 1 1 unit per month. So make sure that when you're doing attendance, look at these messages. They actually tell you quite a bit of information. Okay. All right. Okay. And just to give you an idea of what the that date range attendance looks like, those that are not familiar with it, it's okay. And I'm just going to do these couple of days. Okay. And go ahead and designate my information. Okay. Now, if you have the update or edit role underneath your super role options under the attendance section, it will automatically throw you into the update. But to actually do any other functional aspects, you would either need to go into the input to edit that or to input that initial information, or you would go to your approved, go ahead and approve and review that information, or go ahead and approve that reviewed information. Okay. And then you go ahead and you do your select all, same type of premise. Okay. And approve, and of course, your generate billing data. Now your process from here does not vary in regards of generating your claims and doing your actual claim submission. So I want to show you that other method, which is that method of data collection, which is that billing data input. Mary asked, she's from Connecticut. Mary, you're not wrong at this time on the direct billing connection. But I believe there's something coming down hopefully this year, but right now, no, but you can still collect all of your data in the system. And that applies in other states as well. So if the state does not allow electronic billing, which there are several states out there that do not allow electronic submission, then you can still do all of your tracking within the system itself to gather that information. Yeah, Mary, you are so not alone there. She said, I can't wait. It actually really is nice to be able to hit send out of the system and know that they're actually going to that that payer that you have linked on their authorization. Because even gathering that information and tracking information for billing purposes, you get a lot of good data. But, you know, it's that cherry on top to be able to actually hit submit and be able to be completed with your billing at that time. So I second that, Mary. All right, so I do want to go ahead and show you that billing data input option. Now this is your alternative aside from your attendance, and this is going to be very, very straightforward. So you have your billing data, new. There's no date range on this piece of it to get that date range like there was in the attendance, but I'm just going to go ahead and scroll down and hit search. Okay, and let's see if I have one. Okay. And that's perfectly fine. You'll still get the general idea here. All right. So this was transportation. So if it was that trip and it was a round trip, they would do 2 units. And this is exactly where your billing is deriving from. You can do a date range here as well. If you're doing mileage, you can do, you know, your mileage here for that 1 day to service or for your date range. Same thing with your bus pass, but this is 1 person at a time to do this entry. It still will sit there and calculate 34 units. It's not calculating anything. It's going directly off of what you're putting in the system. So for instance, if I were to do, and this is an example, if you have that bus pass where it's $1 rate and you put in 26 units, okay, this would be an example of how that would be set up, by the way. And I'm going to go ahead and just do my service date for yesterday and submit. I'm having trouble already. Goodness. that's interesting. That's because it's ended 3/31. Did everybody see that? The actual authorization itself. It's only set for 1 month. That's all right. Now, keep in mind, too, your authorization information, whatever you have designated there, is going to be a direct reflection in the attendance. It's going to be a direct reflection in your billing data. So it's not going to let you generate over your total billable units. It's not going to allow you to enter in data if you don't have, if it's outside of your authorization dates. All right. Okay, so that created your billing data. So that actually generated your billing data information. You can come back over here, create new billing data. If you need to do another date of service or another date range for that individual for the same service code. If you need to select another person, you can go back to your list, select another person, and keep going. Now, I do have providers that utilize this method for transportation because there may be one admin person that's entering it in, and this is the way that works for them. We actually do like the attendance just for, we think it's a very ease of use, but that is definitely up to you. Both options definitely work, and they work well. But we tend to still go with that attendance for the most part for most transportation services. But that can also be discussed on an agency level as well to dictate which one actually works for you. But just to give you an idea what that generated billing looks like in the system. So again, we generated that we actually generated it 3 different ways. We did it for that monthly unit. We put in, we did the mileage, which did our monthly unit, by the way. We did the trip transportation. And I'm gonna go ahead and just do our search. So right here, ignore that stuff. So this is actually this billing summary report right here. This is a caseload based report. So you can give people access to this report and they'll have access to just the individuals on their caseload. A little bit bigger. Okay, so you're going to be able to see that breakdown of their transportation. There's my month, there's my funding source, the date I generated the billing, the authorization period, the service dates, the last date of the service month, the actual unit rate, my billable units, and this was my own setting, sorry, on there. But here's my amount to be billed out for those, my actual, my trip transportation would work the same way. I would have 2 units. It would calculate based on that one-way trip rate there. So it's pretty, transportation services are actually very easy to actually bill for out of Therap. It's making sure that you're meeting those documentation requirements if you have them in your state. And yes, there are some states where there are very, very, very minimum documentation requirements. So that being said as well, just kind of be aware and make sure that you are aware of your rules and regulations for your state in regards to the actual documentation. As far as the actual billing slide goes, we can pretty much accommodate for whichever is specified for your state. Excuse me. But really, those are the main things I did want to show you in regards of the actual transportation, and showing you the differences, making sure you know which ones that you can actually bill from, the documentation, the different ways that you can track it in the system, your reporting aspects to gather that information, to maybe enter it into another portal system. Really kind of up to you on how far you would want to go, but the actual documentation, the actual billing piece of it, it works very nicely in regards of transportation for the majority of states. Texas, you're set aside for right now. Sorry, y'all. But we're working on it. That's a more complicated one. But anyhow, just to kind of give y'all that information there. Does anybody have any questions? Give people another minute or so. And again, this is being recorded, so if you do want to come back and reference this at a later time, you will be able to access it on the actual Therap site. Give us a couple of days to get it up there, but it should be on there hopefully this week. But it is there for your reference purposes if you do have any questions. And I will go ahead and put in my contact information in the chat box as well if you have any agency specific or state specific questions in regards to billing the transportation. Please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to address those. If there are not any other questions, I will give you back a little bit of this time for your day. But thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.